I started my career at Walmart from cleaning the aisles and arranging stock, and then slowly moved my way up to becoming the manager at the Walmart. I was told that I will be managing the new Walmart at a local town in Arkansas. I was pretty excited about the job, and I wasn't aware of the locality or the city people, but it was a massive pay hike for me, and even more, the company was providing me good insurance and housing facility, so I wasn't the one to pass on such wonderful opportunity. I was aiming for the corporate office to be the next thing for me. I knew in order to move ahead, the corporate office is going to be the next big thing for me. The new job was pretty easy for me because I was managing the place, and instead of taking orders, I was giving them. The house was pretty big, and I was quite sure that it is going to be an easy run for me. My day-to-day job was managing the employees, and at the end of the day, I was to check in the registers and gather the team up to discuss things about the accounts and plan things out for the next. So by the end of the night, I was the last one to leave the building. Good thing that the company gave me a car, because there was no such thing as public transportation in that place. Even though the town wasn't very big, traveling from one place to another could get very strenuous because of the place being dark and covered with mostly forests. So a car was much help. And since I was the one to close the place at night, I was the last to leave the building. First few months, I never really noticed anything strange about the place. But then one day, it all started to come in right in front of me. I started noticing details that I wouldn't rather do. There was this weird freakiness in the parking lot of the Walmart. It started when I was late one night for the closing of it, and there was a figure right around the corner where the parking ends. I looked at it and said, "Sir, the store times are over. Please move away from the spot." And as I yelled it across the other side of the parking lot, the voice replied, "All right, I'll be out of your hair in a bit." And I didn't really make much of it, and I left. I came back the next morning knowing that there was a man there lurking in the corner. I decided to go check the corner out to see if anything is out of the ordinary, and there was nothing, so I figured the guy must have left or something. The day went by smooth. There were no problems. The day went on without any issue. And then, as the night came in, we discussed the plan matched the sales, and I was the last as usual to close in the door and lock in the facilities. And as I walked downstairs, I saw that the same figure was yet again lurking in the shadow, and yet again I said, "Sir, the store times are over. Please move away from the spot." And as I yelled it across the other side of the parking lot one more time, the voice yelled yet again, replied the very same thing as yesterday. "All right, I'll be out of your hair in a bit." It was all very weird, but I think I was still not bothered by it a lot. It kept happening almost every day now. I would open up and nothing. During the day, nothing. And as the time got by and the evening set in, I waited for everybody to leave. And as I closed the door and decided to move on to my car, I once again saw the figure hanging out by the parking lot. And then it wasn't just one person anymore. It was two of them. I was becoming a bit of a habit for them, so I decided to change it and walk over towards them to make them stop lurking around in shadows in the corner. It is not very legal, and they can be held liable for the things they do in that corner, which was the property of Walmart. I approached them, and as I kept moving, the figures were getting dull and hazy, until I reached the very place where they were, and then they disappeared right in front of my eyes like they were never there. The thing that just got weirder, and then I moved back to the car and they were back. I was puzzled, and from across I said, "Guys, don't fool around too much." And the voice came back and it said, "Don't worry, Stuart, we'll move." I left at first. I thought I was being played and I realized they knew my name, so I figured maybe it is somebody from the office. So I decided to confront them in the store the next morning. I called in the meeting and asked them about whoever hangs around the spot after the Walmart is closed, and everybody said they don't hang around after the work. I asked Juan to check in the cameras and said that no one had been in that spot for weeks other than me just last night. I was puzzled by it all. Being in a new city and knowing nothing, I decided to ignore it and not dwell in the matter for long. I wanted to make sure that I am not the only one seeing this, and this time, I decided that Juan will close down the store with me, and I agreed to drop him off at his house, which was 6 miles away from home. We went back, and there it was, the two shadows standing right in front of us. I looked at Juan, and Juan looked right back at me. I asked him if he is seeing the same thing that I am seeing, and he agreed and remembered whatever God he believed in. He looked at me with a chill and said, "That could be shadows, sir. Anybody's shadows. Let us just leave before it harms us." I told him to calm down, and we got in the car and started driving away. Then suddenly a large thud was heard over the roof of my car, and I thought maybe something fell over us. I got out. There was nothing. I sat back in and saw the shadows were running towards us, and as I got in, one freaked out and jammed his leg right into the driver's seat and jammed it out with full power on the accelerator. And I remember I wasn't even settled, and I was just half in when he did that. The car went blazing into the wall, and last thing we would remember was trying to get out of the wrecked car. I got out of the car, and then I saw that I was in the exact position I was where the shadows were. I was bleeding all over, and Juan had his neck broken. And then we looked into the distance. There was a shadow, again across the parking. And then it struck me. I was the shadow. It was me, the shadow was me, leading to my death. I realized it was death when even after the car wreck, nothing happened to us, and there was no pain that we felt. 'Cause no matter we try, we were just stuck in the loop of the circumstances that led me to death. I was the shadow of my own death. Hey guys, thanks so much for all the support. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please feel free to do so. This happened about 4 years ago. I was 20 at the time. The first time I met the guy who would become my grocery store stalker. He was standing outside the store collecting money for the Salvation Army Christmas time donations, a fairly friendly person. So I like to say hi to people who work at places I frequent to be nice. This guy was a kid around my age, very tall with a mild resemblance to Lurch from the Addams Family, dark circles under dark eyes, short black hair, and kind of vacant look in his eyes as well. I chatted with him for maybe 2 minutes, just idle chit-chat about the weather and whatnot. Nothing particularly memorable or interesting, and then waved goodbye and went home. Little did I know that single moment would be the start of something that would have me genuinely afraid. About 4 or 5 months passed and I hadn't seen him again. Then one day, as I was grocery shopping with a friend, when as we were chatting, she suddenly got really quiet and kind of recoiled backward, looking behind me. I turn around to see this guy, who had to be at least 6'4", towering over me, not 8 inches from my body. He said hi, and told me he remembered me from the December I'd talked to him, and then asked for my number. I, being young and never having experienced this type of interaction before, told him I didn't have my number memorized, but that I would write his down and text him later. I kind of have to wave my phone at him, pointing out me at the time boyfriend whose picture was my wallpaper, making a point to say, "Oh look, that's my boyfriend," to the guys hoping he would clue in. But no luck. He told me his number, which immediately upon getting I blocked, with not letting him get my number. However, would mean my blood run cold was what he said after I put my phone away. He leaned in real close, and in a low voice he told me whatever I text you is for your eyes only. At this point, I started to feel genuinely uncomfortable. I responded, "Yeah, sure, nice talking to you, but we gotta get back to shopping." And I grabbed my friend and dragged her off, shooting a panicked look at her and asking why she didn't bail me out. Apparently, her scared her with her getting so close to me, and she didn't know what to do. I'm gonna make it clear, I'm not exactly a small girl. I'm 5'8" and solidly built. I can certainly handle myself, and I very rarely feel intimidated or small in the presence of anyone, male or female. But this guy made me feel tiny and scared. In the months that would follow, he would make me feel truly frightened. I had hoped that creepy interaction would be the last time I saw him, but that was unfortunately not the case. After that initial meeting with him saying that creepy thing about his text being for my eyes only, it seemed like I would run into him every single time I got to that store, no matter what checkout lane I was in. He always seemed to appear at the end of it when I was finished shopping, and every time I was in the store, I would notice him out of the corner of my eye, watching me, no matter what area I was in. One time, I even caught him following me out to my car. At that point, I got scared and decided to say something to the managers. After letting the managers know what was going on, they assured me that they would tell him to not talk to me. After that, he wouldn't speak to me, but I would continue to see him following me around the store at a distance every time I went up there. It got so bad, and I felt frightened that I started to be afraid to go to the store at all. But I'm one of those stubborn people who refuses to be intimidated by someone to the point, don't stop doing something. I had hoped that maybe it was a coincidence that he was following me. After all, it was a big store. Maybe he just had things to do that just so happened to be in the area that I was shopping in. So I started to pay close attention to my surroundings. Once I started paying really close attention, I realized that every single time it was up there, I will constantly notice them in the areas of the store I was in. During my last encounter with him, I went up to the store to grab just 2 or 3 items I needed for dinner that night, and I first saw him standing outside the store when I got there, and with his back to me, I quickly ran inside hoping he didn't see me. Unfortunately, a few minutes later, I saw him at the very back of the store and items in hand. I immediately made a beeline towards the door. As soon as I got near the checkout, I ducked behind one of the shelf displays and watched carefully at the front of the store to see if the creeper would appear. And he did. I watched. He looked up and down the checkout, and when he didn't see me there, I saw him step outside. At this point, I quickly ran into the nearest open cashier, rang up my items, and stuck my head out the door to look for him. I didn't see him anywhere, so I started trying to make my way back to where I parked. I parked a ways to the side of the store where a bunch of other small stores and restaurants were lined up, and as I was walking towards my car, I realized I saw him standing by the entrance that I had first entered the store through and ducked behind the pillar immediately, hoping he didn't see me. I watched carefully from behind the pillar, and as he scanned the parking lot, he obviously couldn't find me. After a minute or two, he started walking out towards the direction of the parking lot in front of the store, and so I took that opportunity to make a run for it to my car as soon as he was far enough away that I felt safe. As soon as I got into my car, I locked the doors, and to my horror, when I looked up, he was standing there, about 15 feet away from my car, with a shopping cart in front of him. I knew that he followed me. He knew I knew. I fully believed he had chased after me, and when I made it to my car, he grabbed the nearest car to make it look like he was collecting them from the parking lot, and I just remembered feeling absolutely terrified at that moment. I went home and immediately told my grandfather what had happened. I began crying and shaking, and my grandfather told me to get in the car and we were going to settle this. He and I drove up to the store in his car, and he walked me into the store and demanded we speak with the managers immediately, both of them. When the managers arrived at customer service, he asked me to tell them what had been happening and demanded that they ensure he left me alone or that he would involve police. The manager swore up and down that they would take care of it. As far as I know, he wasn't fired immediately because my friend who first encountered him with me when this whole thing began told me that she had seen him from time to time when she was still there by herself, but that any time I went with her, she would never see him. I fully believe he knew whenever I was there, only this time instead of stalking me, he would avoid me. Eventually, everyone who knew the situation stopped seeing him there, so I think he may have gotten fired and moved out from the store. Either way, I haven't had any issues since, but I never in my life felt so afraid of another human being as I did that day. Seeing him make eye contact with me in the parking lot has unlocked my car doors. It still creeps me out to think he was watching me so closely every time I entered the store, and that he could so easily avoid or follow me whenever he wanted. I used to love Valentine's Day. I used to love all the cutesy displays and Valentine's themed stock items we put out in the Walmart I worked at. And I used to love picking out something special for my boyfriend after planning a little date night with him. But we're not together anymore, and I'm not much of a romantic these days either. In fact, I dread February 14 coming around each year because it reminds me of one of the single worst moments in my entire life. So like I said, I worked at Walmart when this all happened, and it actually happened in the store too. I loved the decorating and checking out the romantic stocks that we gotten in that year, but I usually tried to get Valentine's Day off, or if I was working at Tide, trade shifts with a coworker. With this one year, I can't get off, and no one would trade with me, and so I was stuck working 8 till 5 on Valentine's Day, but it's no big loss. I can wait for my presents, and me and my boyfriend arranged to do something after work anyway, so I took it on the chin. Written after I finished my lunch break, I happened to be walking by one of the Valentine's Day displays when I see this older guy staring at some of the items. I thought it was the cutest thing ever. This sweet older gentleman looking to pick his wife up something romantic. Or maybe he had his eye on someone in the nursing home he was at. Either way, was super adorable to me. So I saddled up to the old guy and asked him who the lucky lady is. He's all startled for a moment, again, kind of super cute, and has to compose himself before he gives me his answer. There was no one special in his life. He was just something of an old romantic, and seeing cutesy displays like ours on Valentine's Day made him long for his lost loves of his. I remember he said that. I then asked if he had his eye on anyone new, and he starts talking in a way I found kind of confusing at first. Like I thought I may have misunderstood, maybe lost the context a little bit. After a minute of him just sort of babbling, I realize he's not making any sense at all. He keeps skipping from thought to thought, just like a stream of broken consciousness coming out of him. It was right about then that it hit me that he wasn't all there. That was about the time that I realized he wasn't that old either. I mean, all his hair was gray. He had like an old man jumper on, but he was so animated when he talked. He seemed sort of spry, like full of nervous energy. And at a push, I'd say he was in his mid-50s. But something about him just seemed off, and I was starting to think that initiating conversation hadn't been the best idea on my part. I wish him luck with who the lucky lady turns out to be, then slowly make a move to walk away. But he stops me. Not with a word. I mean, he physically stops me from walking away. He didn't grab me or anything at first. It was just his fingers that gently half wrapped around my wrist. But it was enough to really put me on edge. And then he asked me in a way that seemed both extremely childlike and extremely sinister both at the same time. Be my Valentine. It was so surreal that initially I thought he had to be joking. Like no sane person would ask anyone that in a serious way. Not like that anyway. So I just sort of laugh it off before apologizing and letting him know that I was seeing someone and read as I do. I try to pull my wrist out of his hand. He tightens it, wraps his entire fist around my wrist and squeezes. I just froze for a moment. In almost 2 years of working at that Walmart, I've never had so much as an issue with a customer. Maybe it's because I'm short and blonde. Maybe it's because I'm just lucky because that whole interaction went from 0 to 100 so fast, and given my total lack of experience in any kind of conflict management, I just had no idea what to do. So I froze. The guy starts turning red in the face and he continues to squeeze my wrist as hard as he could. There are veins bulging and it's his neck. He's trembling so hard. His eyes are starting to water, and he is strong, like really freaking strong. Then what he did next haunted me for months afterwards. He gets his face right in mine, while I'm absolutely frozen in terror, and starts singing. He tried to keep his voice down, but he couldn't get the words out without his words trembling from whatever weird rage fit he was going through. After 2 lines, I just started screeching for help. But as soon as I start making any noise, one of those hands shoot up around my throat and pushes me back hard against the shelf. And then he starts squeezing. I stop being able to scream. Then one of his other hands goes somewhere else. Somewhere I really wish he hadn't put it. But when he did, I finally found the strength to really fight back. But it was over moments later. Some other customers come barreling down the aisle when he heard my scream and tackled the guy so hard that he almost floored me too. And if the guy seemed crazy before he got tackled, afterward he turned into a full-blown lunatic. He actually beat the guy who first got him down. And if it wasn't for security showing up as quick as they did, I think he might have actually gotten free. He was legitimately frothing at the mouth by the time the cops showed up. I've never seen a person look like that before. That guy was more animal than man by that point, and the fallout was huge. Walmart sent me to some trauma management thing that didn't help at all, and sent emails around to the other associates, promising they'd do better with security and stuff. But it was all just for show. I gave statements to the police too, and for a while, it looked like I'd have to go to court to testify against the guy that assaulted me. But as it turned out, he was found unfit to stand trial on. Instead of going to real prison, he ended up in some state hospital somewhere else. When it was all said and done, I just tried to get over it. It was one of the most horrific moments in my life, sure, but I refused to let it define me. And for a long while, I worked on my overall mental health, and particularly my sense of self-esteem. I thought I was good at that. I thought it was fixed. So there was no way of me anticipating what would happen when I met a friend at this 50s diner that was our favorite place to eat. We're just sitting there, conversation on hold while we eat, and the song comes on. In the old jukebox until the lyrics started, everything was fine. But then these 2 girls started singing some words that I thought I'd gotten out of my head completely. I know you belong to somebody new, but to Nines, you belong to me. I recognized it instantly from the weird little changes in pitch in the girls' voices, but it was the exact same song the guy in Walmart had sung before he grabbed me. I know I caused a bit of a scene when I got up and fast walked out of there, and my friend calling me after, but honestly didn't care. I couldn't breathe. Well, that song was my ears. I just couldn't be there. I suppose trauma is weird like that. No matter how much you think you have it under control, it's still there, bubbling away just beneath the surface. But I do work at it, and I managed to neutralize how that creepy old song made me feel too. I mean, it took a while, but I managed it. Like I said, I'm not going to let what happened define me, and I'll wear my wounds with pride. But Valentine's Day is most definitely ruined for me.